Hello and welcome to a tutorial video on Kiko's knitting podcast. Today I want to show you how to knit socks with Helix Stripes. As usual, I have already prepared the first sock, and you can see I used a solid blue as the main color and a lighter color as the contrast color, and I knit single row stripes, and you don't have a beginning or end of round, so the stripes just keep going round without ever being interrupted. And those tiny stripes look really nice. And you can see here on the inside, this is where I wove in the ends, but otherwise if I go down a bit, you see there is no beginning or end of round. I never cross the yarns with each other, so they just run above each other. This is sock number 1, and I did a different heel than the other videos that I did lately. So I still have the same toe, but instead of the short row heel, I did a traditional heel. And as this is about the stripes, I've already prepared the ribbing. Again, I cast on 36 stitches. That's my favorite stitch number for babies out of 4-ply yarn. Put on 3 needles, that's 12 stitches per needle. And with needle number 4, I'm going to knit. This is my main color, and this is my contrast color yarn. This is a 100 Wasser colorway by Opal. And I'm pushing the end through the sock so that I have enough left to weave in later. So I'll pull it out and I try and lay double to estimate how much yarn I need to weave it in. And here I will start knitting the first stitches in the contrast color. So the main color yarn is to the side, so they are not going to cross at all. And I'm just now starting to knit the contrast color, and I'll show you the trick how to make sure you don't cross the yarns, but I'll tell you in a moment as soon as I get there. The ribbing was knit in a knit 2 purl 2 pattern. You could do knit 1 purl 1, whatever you like. But from now on I will just knit all the stitches, so in a stockinette pattern. I think this is what is the nicest for stripes. And now I'm knitting the first round, but I am not going to completely finish the round. So I'll knit all the stitches except for the last 3. And I'll show you what to do with the last 3 stitches in a moment. So this is my 3rd needle. I'm now going to knit 9 of the 12 stitches, and then I have 3 stitches left. That's where I am now. So here are 3 stitches, and I'm going to just slip these stitches. It does not mean this is a slip stitch pattern. I am going to knit those stitches, but I'll just do it later. So now I can grab the next needle, and now I'm going to take my main color yarn. I just left it hanging there. It's still hanging there, and now I pick it up, and now I'm going to knit the stitches that I knit with the light color. This first stitch can be pulled out of proportion easily, but if you pull on the yarn end, the stitch will go back to its normal size, and then you can see how the stitch shrinks. And now I'm going to knit all the stitches of the second round, but for the last needle I'll not knit 6 stitches. So the last 3 that I omitted in the last round plus the last 3 light stitches. And for the first part of the sock, that's what we keep doing. We'll stop 3 stitches before the other color ends. It does take a bit longer to finish a round, but it makes sure that you have a nice change of color. So I have 3 light stitches that are left. I will pick up those light stitches. I'll grab the contrast color yarn, and now I'm going to knit the last 3 stitches of the first round. If you pull on the yarn a bit, you can make sure that you have the same tension on all your stitches. Now I have finished the first round without crossing the yarns at all. And now I'm going to knit the first needle again. So this is round 3, the second light one, but it's round 3. I'm going to pull on that yarn, and again, this can get loose easily until you weave in the end. So sometimes people think there's a hole or something, but until you wove in the end, it can always happen, and you can always pull it tight again. So this is basically the trick that you need to do. You don't have to end 3 stitches before the other color. You could always knit to the end of round and grab the yarn from underneath without crossing them. I'll show how to do that after I finish the heel, just to see how that works. And I'll show you what the disadvantage of doing that is. The advantage of doing this is that I can't be tempted to cross the yarns, because there's always a space in between the 2 yarns, and I can pull on the yarn to make sure that I have the right tension, and that can be a problem if you always knit to the end of the round. So now I'm starting round 4. So this is the second main color round, but it's round 4 altogether. Counting the rounds can be a bit confusing, but if you always go to the beginning of round, it shouldn't be too difficult. So I think the only point where you have to count the rows if you want to make sure that both legs are the same length. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter how many rounds you have for your leg. So now I've knitted to the end of the needle, and there's only 3 stitches left in the light color. So I'll let go of the main color yarn, grab the contrast color, pick up the 3 stitches. They are already knit in the contrast color, and I'll finish the needle, and I'll finish round 3. I've already knit the beginning of the 4th round, so now I go straight into round 5. For my little sock, I knit 19 rounds for the leg, and then I started the heel. It's an uneven number of rounds because I started with the contrast color, but I did want to knit the heel in the main color, so that's why it's an uneven number of rows, but that doesn't really matter, does it? And you can do it any way you like it. I'm now going to knit until I have only 3 stitches left, and these are the 3 stitches that I slip, so I can change to the blue yarn again and pick up the main color, and I'll keep knitting with the blue yarn, and I'll start the next round, and so on and so forth. So 19 rounds means I have 10 light rounds and 9 blue rounds, and that's where I start the heel. And so I'll knit the rest of the leg off camera, and I'll be right back. So now I'm getting to the end of the round, and that's where the 10th contrast color round begins. So I have 9 now. This is the 10th contrast color round, and I will now knit the same as I did before, so until I have only 3 blue stitches left. Oops, I knit it too far. So I'll go back 2 stitches. So I have 3 blue stitches left. I'll pick them, I slip them, change to my main color. But now I'm not going to knit until I get to the end of the light colored stitches, but I only knit to the end of round, because that's where I want to put the heel. You can place the heel wherever you want, but with the first sock I started the heel. I knit the heel over the first half of the stitches, so that's what I'm going to do with the second sock. It's easier for me to get 2 socks the same. But this means I'm not knitting until I get to the end of the light colored stitches. But this is where I stop now, because this is the beginning of round. You can see where the white starts and where the yarn ends are. And now I'll search for the end of my contrast color stitches. So I'll slip those 3 stitches onto my free needle, and then I'll take my contrast color and I will also knit to the end of round. And you can either knit to the end of round or you can leave 3 stitches. But if you knit to the end of round, you will have both colors at the same point, which is not a big problem. Just make sure you don't cross the yarns. So now sometimes you have to turn your knitting so you can unwind your yarns if they because of the knitting they will sort of get tangled. You can untangle them by turning your knitting the other way. Oh, I stopped one too early. There's one more needle I need to knit. So I will quickly knit those stitches. I could have noticed that the stitches are blue, but I wasn't paying attention. Anyway, so the heel, I think most heels are knit over half the stitches. So you can pull on the ends to even out the stitches. So the half the stitches is 18 stitches. I'm going to do a blue heel. So now I'm just making sure that I'm not crossing those stitches. The contrast color yarn I'll lay to the side, get the blue yarn from underneath. And now I want 18 stitches. I have 12 stitches on my needle. So I have to add 6 more stitches to my heel. So I'll put that needle down and get 6 stitches from this needle. 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have the 18 stitches, and to make things a bit more even on the other side, I'll just put 3 of those stitches onto the other needle. So both needles should have 9 stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. That worked out. So make sure you don't lose any of those stitches. Place them in the middle of the needle while we knit the heel. And for the heel flap, you knit to and fro over the stitches of your heel. So I'm going to turn round and I will keep knitting with my blue yarn, and I'm going to purl all the stitches, and I'm not doing the edge that I prefer, but I don't know what the edge is called in English, but you'll see what happens in a minute. So I'll slip the first stitch as if to purl, then purl all the stitches, including the last that I usually knit, but I'm going to purl them this time. And for the right side rows, I'm going to slip as if to knit, and then knit all the stitches. So I slip them the way I work them. I slip as if to knit and knit all the stitches, and the next row I will slip as if to purl and purl the stitches. So you can do garter edges on your heel flap and do the first and last 3 stitches in garter stitch, but for this tiny sock I didn't want to do that. So I knitted the last stitch, turned round, I slip as if to knit with the yarn in front, and I purl all the stitches. And I'm going to do that for how many rows? Yeah, how many rows do you do for your heel flap? And people have different opinions. I learned that you take the number of stitches that you use for your heel and you do -2. So I'm working on 18 stitches, so I would do 16 rows. You can change that. You can do fewer rows or more rows, depending on how you prefer it. If you have a very high instep, I know some people prefer to do more rows. But as with most things in knitting, there are several ways of doing things, so you can decide how you want to knit your heel flap. So if it's your first sock, I would maybe follow the rule of doing number of stitches -2 as your number of rows. So I'm going to knit 16 rows for this heel flap. I'm now on row 6, so it's going to take a while, and I think I'll again do that off camera, and then I'll be back as soon as I've finished the heel flap. You could do the heel flap in garter stitch. Some people have done that, but then you need a different number of rows because garter stitch has a completely different gauge for rows. Okay, so I'm going to quickly finish the heel flap and be right back. So this is the last row of my heel flap. I'm quickly purling all my stitches. And then I'm going to do the heel turn. The heel turn can have different shapes. It can be a bit more square or more like a triangle. I don't know if there are different names for that kind of heel turn in English. So in German there are two different words. The square one is the traditional one, and the one that's more like a triangle, it's called a heart heel, which sounds nice. So this is the edge that I got by knitting and slipping the stitches the way I did. Now we do the heel turn. So for my heel turn, you divide the number of stitches by 3. So with 18 divided by 3 is 6. If you have a grown-up sock with 30 stitches, it's also very easy because you have 10. So the first third, do you say that, are 6 stitches for the right side of the heel. Then the middle part is also 6 stitches, but I will only knit 5 of them. So I'll leave 1 of them. So I have the 6 stitches of the left part, and the last stitch of the middle of the heel I will slip as if to knit. Then I'll knit the next stitch and then pull the slip stitch over. I'll show you a different way in a minute. So you have done 1 decrease, then you turn round, and now you have to slip the stitch as if to purl, otherwise it won't be a nice edge. Now I've slipped 1, I'm going to purl 4 stitches, 3, 4. So with the slip stitch, these are 5 stitches, so I have 1 left of my middle 6 stitches and the 6 stitches from the first part. And now I'm going to purl 2 stitches together, 1 stitch of my middle part and 1 of the outer part. I purl them together. Now I turn again. And now I'm going to slip the first stitch as if to knit. I will knit 4 stitches. So I'm at the last stitch of my middle part. And with this traditional heel turn, you always have the same number of stitches in the middle. And you can see that this stitch belongs to the middle part, and there's a gap, and to close the gap I will slip that stitch, and instead of knitting this stitch I can also slip it, put the left needle into the stitches and knit them together. So this is like an SSK, but it's the same if you slip, knit and pass over, or if you do the traditional SSK. Now I will slip another stitch, I will purl 4 stitches, and then I will again purl 2 together to close the gap in between the 2 parts of the heel. So by purling them together, I won't have a hole at that spot. Then I turn again, and I will keep repeating these 2 rows until I've used up all the stitches at the sides. So the 6 stitches in the middle stay the same, but the outer stitches will get eaten up. So I have only 3 stitches left on the side. I'll turn again, slip a stitch, purl 4, 3, 4, I'll purl 2 together, and I should have 3 stitches on this side left. Yeah, so I have to repeat those 2 rows 3 more times. So slip, knit 4, and then either SSK or slip 1, knit 1, and then pass over. It won't make a difference. Turn, slip 1 as if to purl, and purl 4, and on this side you always purl 2 together. I don't think there's a different way of purling 2 together, but who knows? I don't know a different way. So purl them together, turn round. I'll show you how to do it this way, why it's better to do an SSK and not a knit 2 together. Some people do that. It works as well. The sock, you can still use the sock, but it's a bit nicer with the SSK. So that was the second to last time. Slip as if to purl, purl 4 stitches, purl 2 together, and then this. Now you have to be careful with just the 1 stitch left, you don't lose it. And then again slip a stitch, knit 4, and then the last SSK, and then there are no stitches left on this side, and I turn to do the last row, slip a stitch, purl 4, 2, 3, 4, and then purl 2 together, and that'll be the last stitch on this side, and then turn, and I only have 6 stitches left where I used to have 18, and now I've finished the heel turn, and this is how you make the heel 3-dimensional. And here you can see this stitch running along the edge, and this works out if you do a purl 2 together and do the SSK on the other side, you get this nice line. If you knit it 2 together, you'd get little, yeah, it would look different. It wouldn't be an uninterrupted line. It would still hold together, but it just wouldn't look as nice. So now we want to go back to knitting in the round, but we have this big gap without stitches, but we need more stitches in between. So to make stitches there, I'll show you how to do that. So I'll slip the first stitch, knit the remaining 5 stitches, and now we need to pick up stitches from the edge. And very often this is the reason that people don't want to do the heel flap heel, because of picking up stitches. So usually for the heel flap you knit 1 stitch for 2 rows. It's a different way of picking up stitches than if you do a pullover and you pick up stitches for either a sleeve or a button band. So I knit 16 rows, so I should have 8 selvage stitches, 7, 8. So this is my first selvage stitch, and because we did this edge with these that look like stitches, I would just go underneath both of the strands of yarn and pull up the yarn. It does look a bit as if it was a big hole, but this is going to disappear later. So if you wanted to, you could put the left needle through on the left needle and then knit them through the back. But for me that gets too tight. I just had 1 strand. You can do 1 strand and then knit that through the back loop, but I prefer to go through both strands. So if I pull, I can see the holes, but if I relax a little, you see that the selvage edge is in the back, and you don't really get holes. And it's easy to get the right number of stitches. You have to make sure that you get the right the 2 strands, even though they sort of fold to the inside. But if you do different strands, it's not too bad. And so yeah, that's really how easy it is to pick up stitches from the side of the heel flap. So because of talking, I haven't really counted the stitches. Now let's see where the last stitch is. So we had 2, 4, 6 that we had at the beginning, 2, 4, 6, 8. That's exactly the 8 stitches out of the 16 rows of heel flap. Now here's a bit of a gap, so you can pick up one more stitch in between the heel flap and the instep. I could go into the light stitch, but it would distort the stitch a bit. I think I'll just use the blue stitch and knit that. Let's see how that looks. It doesn't really look good either. So what to do? You could do the strand in between the stitches and knit that through the back loop. I think I'll use this last light stitch and I will knit that through the back loop. Let's see how that looks. Oh, that's not too bad. Let's do it like that. So I did one more stitch. You don't have to do that, but you can. So now I'm at the instep. I'm going to get my free needle. I'll just knit the stitches of the instep, and I just realized before I started the heel, I knitted both strands to the end of the needle. I could have stopped 3 stitches before just to keep in the same technique that we used in the beginning. Then I would stop now with the blue if I'd stopped there. But because I didn't, I will keep knitting the 3 stitches and now slip those 3 stitches. So, and now we are back to the light color. So I'll leave the main color, and on this side of the heel, I'm picking up the stitches with the light color. So I don't know how to do it. If you wanted to pick up stitches with all the stitches with the main color, you'd probably have to cut the yarn. But if you don't want to cut the yarn, you have to pick up stitches on one side with one color and on the other side with the other color. Now let's find the first stitch. Now I'm a bit lost. 6, 7, 8. So this could be stitch number 1 or 9. So I'll start with that down here and then see if I can get 9 stitches if I didn't make a mistake when I was looking at this stitches right now. 1, 2. These are the 2 strands. 3, 4. Sometimes you go through the strand of yarn. It can be a bit difficult to get the other yarn through, so try not to slip your yarn. 5. That's number 6. 7, 8, and that should be 9. Okay. 2, 2. If you don't have the same number of stitches, it doesn't really matter, but you see that the line is quite nice, and now I am going to add 3 stitches. I'm going to knit another 3 stitches onto this needle because I want to be in the middle of the heel. And basically this is the new beginning of round. It doesn't really matter, but it helps in orienting yourself. And it also helps with the gusset decreases. And now I'm going to use my 5th needle instead of leaving the stitches on 3 needles. Once you've picked up the stitches, you have too many stitches. We had 6 here from the 18, but now we've picked up 9 stitches. So 9 plus 9 is 18, plus 6 is 24. So we have 24 stitches where you used to have 18. So that's 6 stitches too many. I was a bit confused but no. So I now have 12 stitches on both needles, and I have 6 stitches too many, so that's why we do the gusset decreases. And the gusset decreases are usually done before you at the point where the sole and the instep come together, but we'll do that in the next round, because I like to knit one round after picking up the stitches so it looks a bit neater. So I have to see how to do the color, which color I use for the decreases. You usually do the decreases every other round, so I will use one color to do the decreases and one color to just do the round in between. So now let's catch up with the blue color. And then I'm not going to do the same technique with slipping the stitches, but I will now knit the blue color to the end of round, which for now is the middle of the heel. And I will leave it there, and then this looks really loose. I'll just knit that through the back loop. You can always do that if you feel that things look too loose. I think the rest looks fine. Yeah, so I declare this to be the new beginning of round, and I'll leave the blue yarn and go back to the light color so I can show you how to do that. And maybe I'll do the decreases with both colors, we'll see. So now I'm going to do the first decrease here. So at the beginning of the sole, what you do is that you knit one stitch, and then you place the first decrease, and this is an SSK, so you slip, put the left needle into the stitches, knit them together so you have a left leaning decrease. And now I'm going to knit to the end of the needle where the main color is waiting, and it's a bit like before the heel that we have both strands at the same time. And now you have to be careful not to pull this stitch too loose. So I pull on my blue yarn, and this is the main reason you do this slip 3 stitches, because at this point your stitches can really get distorted if you pull too tight or have them too loose. And now you have to make sure not to cross your strands, but you put the last color to the right, pick up the old color from underneath. And now that I start knitting, I mustn't pull too tight, otherwise this stitch is sort of going to disappear. So I'll knit the first stitch, check that the last stitch is okay, and now I knit until I get to 3 stitches. I only have 3 stitches at the end of needle. So on the other side we knit 1 and then did the decrease, and now I have 3 stitches. The other side had the SSK. Here I'm going to knit 2 together, so I have a right leaning decrease, and I'll knit the last stitch just as usual. So knit 2 together, knit 1, and now I'm going to knit the instep stitches. They are just simply knit. No increases, nothing special. And then when I get to the 4th needle, to the sole stitches, I already did the decrease, so now I'm going to knit over the decrease, because we only decrease every other round. So just knit the stitches to the end of the needle. Be careful not to pull out the last 2 stitches or the last stitch. And I thought I'll show you how to do that on the sole of the sock, so it won't be too obvious if I do distort my stitches. So pull on the other color. The yarn that I used I'm putting to the side, pick up the other one from underneath, make sure not to distort any stitches, and I continue knitting with this color. And at the end of the needle, I'm just going to knit the stitches because I just done the decrease. You can see that those were knit together. And then so that's how I learned to do it, do the decreases every other round. But you could do 2 rounds of plain knitting in between. So it would take a little longer for the decreases to get finished, but especially for high insteps, this might be a good idea. But it depends on how you like the sock. I'm just showing the way, the classic way, and I just mention what you could do differently. So with blue, we were just knitting across. So now I'm going to do my slip, slip, knit together. And this is the second decrease. And I'm going to have to do 3 of them. And so I'll stop knitting to the end of the needle. I think you understood how that works. But I just go back to slipping the stitches so I don't have to be so careful with pulling on the yarn and pulling on the stitches. So now I can pull the stitch tight and keep knitting, and it's a bit more relaxing, I think. So we don't have to make things more difficult than necessary. So now here I'll do the second decrease, and I knit 2 together, knit the last stitch plainly, and then knit again the instep stitches. So I'll do 2 more rounds. So we had 6 stitches too many, and as we decrease at 2 points, we need 3 decreases at both points. Then we've decreased 6 stitches, and then I'm back to 36 stitches. And then you can knit the foot as long as you like it. I just put I'm not quite sure where I finished with the contrast color, but at some point you just stop knitting the color you don't want for your toe, and then you just keep knitting with your main or with your toe color. And I mean, you could do stripes in your toe if you wanted. Then you could decrease stitches just like we're doing the decreases here. You could do that in the toe and keep the stripes going into the toe. That would be fun too. So this is where I have to just knit across the decrease. So after I knit the instep stitches, sometimes the strands get caught in the double pointed stitches. I usually make sure that the balls of yarn don't get entangled, and I will swap their places usually every other round, but right now I want to make sure I keep knitting, even if that means untangling yarns. And I think once I finish the gusset decreases, I'll put the stitches back onto 3 needles, so I have 2 fewer ends. But for the gusset, it's quite nice to have the decreases. So now I'm doing the 3rd decrease on this side, and I'm already at the color change. So I'll just only slip the 1 stitch. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be 3. You can do 1 or 2 stitches as well. So let's see. Okay, now I can keep knitting with the main color. And now I'll do the last decrease on this side. Then I'll, so now I have to knit 2 together. Yep. And then I want to have 12 stitches per needle. Right now there are 9 stitches. So I'll put that away. I'll add 3 more stitches to this needle. So now I should have 12 stitches. For the foot, it doesn't really matter how the stitches are on the needle. And for the toe, it doesn't really matter because this is a symmetrical toe. It doesn't matter where up and down is. Now I had 6 stitches left on this needle. Put this to the side and then add 6 more stitches from this needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I have 3 stitches left on this needle, and I will knit those 3 stitches. I'll just knit 2. I'll slip that one, put this away. Sorry, my hands disappear from the screen every now and then. So I was finished with the blue. I've already slipped 1 stitch, slipped the next 2 stitches. I've finished the decreases. So these should be 12 stitches. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, that works. Now, let's have a look. So the instep stitches are on that needle, and I split it in the middle of the toe. Now you know how that works to do how to do the helix stripes. We've put the 2 colors together again, and here you can see the line of decreases going down, and you can see on the other side you also have a line going down. I'll show it on the finished sock. So this is the line of gusset decrease on this side and that on this side, and this is why we do knit 2 together on one side and SSK on the other. And then you finish knitting the rounds that you need for your foot. And I stopped knitting the contrast color on the sole of the foot and then just started knitting the blue color. I did my usual star toe with the 6 decreases, the way I've done it with all the other videos. If you don't know how to work it, I have at least 2 videos where I show how to do the star toe. And this is the helix sock. I hope you liked the video and you understood what I was trying to tell and show you, and maybe you would like to add helix stripes to all your projects. And if you want to do socks with helix stripes, you can show them in my Ravelry group for Kikos Strickschule. So enjoy your knitting, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!